stress me out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make this happen. Went a little bit over time. Shout out to T Manny for coming on the show. That was dope. So getting ready to go in with my sister, ms.uduak. Shout out to Annie. Annie in the building. T Manny. Yeah, T Manny should join back and just say bye to everyone since he ended abruptly. You know, should at least join and say bye to everyone. You know what I mean? Shout out to Miss Uduak, and then so we can wrap this up and get into our conversation. T Manny. Yes, let's do this. Yes. So I think you didn't get to say your bye and shout outs and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, boys. Thank you, man. It was nice. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for everything. It was a great, inspiring one, and I'll be disturbing you a lot.
Definitely. Let's do that. Thank you so much, and we'll link up soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bless. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Miss Uduak on board. Let's see, she's there. Wave. Okay. If you can, if Uduak, if you can just post a comment so that I can bring you in, or send me a request so I can bring you in that way, so we can get this song. What's up, Annie? Prince Demo in the building. What's going on, bro? I miss my Thursday vibes at Festac, man. I miss that right now. I need some of that in my life right now. Let's see, Uduak. So, Miss Uduak, if you can please drop a comment once I see a comment, and I'll use that to bring you in. With this bullet Yoruba you speak. Oh man. Bootleg. Oh man.
Where you day?
I'm here.
Can you hear me well?
I can
How's
hear
the sound?
you very, very well. Sorry, we ran a little late.
Awesome. Yes.
Yes.
Feels good.
Yes.
We're always getting on the phone and doing some yarns. It's been a long time.
I know.
I'm just gonna lean back so we can really have a conversation.
Exactly. You know, thank you so much for even agreeing to do this. You know, it's exciting.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah, wealth of knowledge. I think it would be great. So I was talking about you.
By the way, before you go any further, your content has been off the hook.
Oh, man.
I mean, because I'm watching all of this and sort of curating the conversations to share with my audiences.
Yes.
And man, the depth, the knowledge, the exposure to other names that we didn't even know in the diaspora. Kudos to you, man. You're killing it. Love it.
Yes. Thank you.
Love
Thank you.
love it.
And I see that you have been sharing it, and it takes a lot to even do that. And I really appreciate that. And as you know, let me just put it out there, disclaimer.
Bump your volume a little bit. You're a little low.
Cool.
Bump your volume a little bit.
How is that? Is that better?
Just a little bit more.
Just a little bit more. Okay, cool. Let me turn you one more. How about now?
Much better.
Much better. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, like, you know, I've been a fan of Lady Brill magazine, then the whole AML thing, then the podcast from the get-go. I always tell artists and DJs, people in the creative space, that go on there, listen, learn. I mean, there's so much information, wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much. I think you came into that space. It was wide open. You know, we didn't have nothing like that, you know, before you came in and started doing. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah.
Absolutely.
Let me close my door. Right?
Okay. I'll just increase this volume right here on my end just to make sure. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. So welcome on board. You know,
thank you.
I think a lot of people like myself also, like most people know you from the professional space and all the great things you've been doing. I think we should get started and for you to talk about your background. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's take you back home before even the United States. Let's talk about, you know, you growing up as a young girl, like a lot of young girls are growing up right now over there. Yeah, if
absolutely.
You could, take us through that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, born in the USA, but raised in Lagos, and once a Lagosian, always a Lagosian.
Yeah.
Spent time in Ikeja, spent some good time in Ajegunle, and then finished out in Ejigbo. And so from Ejigbo, then came out to the States. Now, when I was growing up, I fortunately and unfortunately, because, you know, when challenges come, it really builds character. So I didn't get that silver spoon in my mouth kind of thing, right? So things were tough. And my dad was abroad while my mom was down in Lagos with the kids, trying to raise the kids. And my heritage is actually Akwa Ibom, but I had, or Calabar at the time, you know, used to be Cross River before the state split. So I had no idea actually that I was not Yoruba. I literally thought I was Yoruba because that's all I communicated in.
Yes.
I had no idea that on the paternal side was law, judiciary, law enforcement. I just didn't have all that because everybody else was at home while, you know, I was in Lagos with my family, my immediate family.
Yes.
So I discovered my love for the law reading a Yoruba book when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Wow. That early. Yeah.
You know, just Faye Cogmo, I don't know if people remember those shows back in the days, among others. So I just, how to speak and write was really just reading.
Yes.
And one of the books that I had in one of my primary classes was this book about a character called Agbeke. And she was a young girl that was actually a housemaid for the master and madame, or master and you know, the woman of the house. And apparently she was accused of wrongdoing, which she didn't do. And you know, Yoruba storytelling is like none other, in my view. Just excellent storytelling.
Yes.
So the way they were carving it out in Yoruba language was how this whole court process came into play. And there was a judge character who was administering justice to this girl and going through this whole interrogation of whether she stole or did not steal from the madame. That story changed my life. At that point, when I read that book, without having no knowledge that actually that was my lineage on the paternal side, that this thing runs deep, I said, I want to do that. I want to be an advocate. Wow. I want to be the voice for the voiceless. So that's how I came to really fall in love with the law. And of course, when again you're growing up in Nigeria society, like, where's the man? Where's the father? Where's the man? And that had a very, very big impact too, not necessarily from a standpoint of wanting a man around per se, but just a standpoint of not feeling protected there. Because, you know, we have that mob mentality, unfortunately. And in our big cities, we've seen it over time where, you know, if people don't agree with you, let's say they accuse you of stealing, somebody can just yell "Ole," and before you know it, there's a tire being. I saw a lot of those lynchings because that's what they really were in hindsight. And they had an impression on me, and I said, I don't want other people to ever go through this kind of process. And even at that young age, I already knew that I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless and make a difference. So, make the long story short, my transition back to the US was very, very abrupt. You know, family, personal drama, parents, and all that. So one day I show up from school, literally, and my mom's like, "We're returning back to the States." I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my friends. I think my neighbors were very short greeting, and we got back on that plane and came back over here. And I can tell you for sure, I mean, I'm just giving you the short version. The struggle was real. Of course, when I lived back in Nigeria, I was telling you, growing up in Ikeja, we lived in that 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. We were using the latrine like everybody else. We were going to fetch the water, kerosene, the lamps. But education was always so important to my mom because regardless of the fact that we had that reality,
yes,
she found a way to always keep us in private schools, which is so interesting when I look at it in hindsight.
yes.
My mom always made sure we were in private schools getting educated. So we were the kids where even though we were in private schools, our uniforms were like worn till the point of tatteredness. We were the ones that constantly were being like driven for school fees because my mom had to find ways to just get school fees
Make
to
the
pay.
bills. Yeah.
And then things started to get better. And so we moved to Ejigbo, and that's where we got the flats and all that stuff. And while we were in Ejigbo, the commute to school even was a hassle, right? Because you get up 6 in.the morning, especially when I went to Gideon International Children's School first, and then later on Command Ikeja. And when it started to be when it started to be, the opportunity to start going to Command,
yes,
that went a whole new level of this thing, right? Like street girl. Like I always say, you can take the girl out of Lagos, you can't take the Lagos out of her or Ejigbo, whatever. So, commuting, you get up by 6, you don't get to school by, 9 or 10. You got to walk through Oshodi, walk through Isolo, all the craziness. And I was a Molue girl, like just get on that Molue and hang outside of the doors and just take in that breeze and the downfalls and all that stuff. And a lot of my time was going through that Oshodi market, and it had such an impact on just looking at our environment, what we can do as Nigerians, being proud of ourselves as Africans down the line too, just expanding it beyond just Nigeria, and the impact I know that I want to make on life. So we transitioned over here, and while I was in Niger, I always got into fights, lots of physical
at the schools.
Oh yeah, physical neighborhood schools, physical fights. But I had a thing about fighting with ladies, right? I would not fight with the girl. But guys, oh man, it's on. We roam the gutter and the whole 9 yards. But when I was coming here, I was like, okay, I already know it's not that kind of party. It's a different kind of party. I'm gonna use this, I'll go on this common sense that they've given me, and I'll take that fight to a whole different level. So that's how sort of like I already knew it wasn't a question whether I was going to be a lawyer. For sure I was going to be a lawyer, and I was going to be a trial lawyer. So in courtroom, bring on the trials. And not only that, while I do trial work, I was going to bring it on, take no prisoners, much the same way I was doing over there. But this time around in a Onyibo speak, Americana kind of way, if you will. And so that's precisely, what I did here, came here. When I transitioned here, the kids made the mistake of wanting to make me feel like I didn't fit in because I was African. I was like, I don't know who you're playing with.
It wasn't so cool to be African like that time.
Well, for me, it was always cool because when they tried it, they said, this one, a different one, y'all better fall back. Because when they tried to intimidate, tease, or taunt, I will not bring the fight, but if you bring the fight, you better finish it. And so I, would just make their life living hell, that they would be like, please, Joy, just let us be. We know, we got the memo. Let us be. And I wanted to channel all that, obviously, towards something good, which is to fight for the voiceless. And for me, what really motivates me is, again, what I saw growing up, protecting women and children, and knowing that our country can be better, that we are responsible for what the future looks like. And we should stop looking at everybody else to help us be who we are called to be. And that's been my mantra throughout. So when I got to the States, another thing that was very different was when I was back home. I mean, the Lekpas were like, oh my God, people would tell me you're so pretty, but you have a little bit of fat, you'll be pretty. How can you be skinny like this? The whole 9 yards. And so I used to grow up wanting to be serious Orobo because all my aunties and my cousins that were older, who they were dating, were always women that were like serious Ikebe, right? Everybody remembers the whole Ikebe super. Ikebe.
Find that for Nigeria.
Exactly. So I wanted to be that way, but then I came to the US, and for the first time I was like, oh my God, you're gorgeous, look at that body, they skinnies in here, right? So in that process got into modeling, and during modeling,
before you go into that, you talked about the law being in the paternal. Can you talk to us about what team in the members or family that was also law? Were there people in the family that was in
So,
law?
so I have cousins who are. I have my dad himself studied law, was a law professor back in Niger.
Okay.
I have uncles who were sort of like pseudo judiciary roles. Even in my immediate family now, my sister's a lawyer. I have cousins in the U.S. who are. I mean, like just law runs on that side of the family. On my mother's side of the family, it's fashion, health, music, education, the arts.
Okay.
And I'm that child that took both sides.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
I thought that was very important to clarify
Yeah.
that, because I know you going in, you know, reading the story, the girl that did something to you, and then you had that foundation there also. This can work. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I thought that was important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in Nigeria, I was trying to really fight that reality of the creative side, right? As part of that rebellion of, you know, you have to have a guy around, or otherwise people can't respect your mom or protect your family, kind of thing. And she was in someone else's land trying to raise her kids and give them the best she could. So I was trying to resist that fashion and creative side, but you know, blood again is thicker than water. So the home economics class, I said, hell to the no, I'm not taking that class, because they required cooking. No, there was no way I was going to be cooking for nobody. That was the mentality at the time. So I took agriculture instead, and horticulture classes, learning the whole farming process, which in hindsight was a good thing, right? Because we know agriculture is still key. But cooking is also important. You got to know how to feed yourself.
Saying that. Do you remember the name of the book you read in Nigeria?
You know, I've been trying to remember. I can't, because I was always one of those
because
back in Nigeria.
Very familiar. Yeah, that I remember.
I hope somebody listening to it can help me find that book. I just remember the colors. The cover was pink, and then had a little black and white caricature illustration of like, so I'm always hoping. I've been dreaming about that book for like forever, and hoping that someone can know the name and tell me, like, just to reunite with the book. But it really made a difference for me. But so transitioning here, making the decision. Making the decision that I would be a voice for the voiceless, no question about it, looking at my environment from Niger. And then the abruptness, I think, of how I left left my heart in Niger. I don't think it ever left, right? So when I returned back here, people were saying, hey, you're pretty, you should model, blah, 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 blah. So I got into modeling, and I started to notice something interesting, which was when I was on the runway, people were like worshiping me, like, you're so fine, whatever. When I got off the runway and went back into my regular world, which was now as a lawyer and all that, people would ask me the most stupid questions about Africa and Africans. And I just didn't have the patience. I don't believe I have to explain myself and who I am. I just don't. It's not my job to educate other people about who I am and my identity. The Google is available now, but before then you could still conduct research.
Yes.
So after I got tired, I realized that one of the reasons why they do this is because through fashion, we've been able to redefine who Africans are. And the way we do it through fashion is to take the clothes of Africans. Everybody else wears clothes except the Africans, who are on Discovery Channel at the time, running around naked or all this other things. So I said, you know what, I'm going to put the clothes back on Africans. And I know how to do it because I have the relationships. And I'm in mainstream. So that's why and how I started Lady Brill. Lady Brill, the name itself was a nickname that my friends back in Nigeria, one of my specific friends, shout out to Fumi Shotomi if she watches this, who gave me that name. So I brought it over here, trademarked it, and started to use it to just do exclusively African fashion. And the tagline was where the West meets today's African fashion industry. Okay. Now, the moment I started it, it took off. And not only did it take off, now the musicians all across the African continent started to say, now it's not only fashion. What about the music? And so through that, started to cover music, broke a lot of artists, partner with a lot of major brands and emerging brands. And then at some point I said, I can do more. Why don't I get visibility for our artists? So I started, I think I was probably the first to start to sync our music here with all of my productions for New York Fashion Week at the time. So I'd hire a team that would produce content on all the runway stuff. And then I would use the music of our artists syncing it for, for the snippet, the
Yes.
synopsis of the show. And shout out to Aldo McCrory and Emma Abaga and all those who could understand that vision, Obi-Wan, Obiora Obi-Wan, that green, where some of the people who said, yeah, sure, take my music. I see the vision, I can see it. So yeah, that's essentially that. Let me back up a little.
I think you should talk to us a little bit about how you got into, because you did so much with modeling, because you kind of mentioned it like, oh yeah, whatever.
How I got into what?
Into modeling. I think you should talk to us about
into modeling.
Yeah, how you, because you did
it
quite
was
a lot
an interesting
with modeling.
story. So when I was in high school,
Yes.
Already, the mentality of Niger at the time, modeling wasn't in. It wasn't until Oluchi came much later that modeling really became accepted. So telling my mom, at the time I was a junior in high school, and telling my mom that I was going to model was just out of the question. But there was a guy on my campus. He really looked like Ashton Kutcher. He was fine, right? His name was Nick. And we're friends. And every time he would say, you should model. You're so pretty. You should model. You're so pretty. And he happened to be a model himself. So one day after school, he just got tired of it and just said, you know what? You're coming with me to my modeling agency. You should model. You're going to model whether you like it or not. So I was like, okay, well, let me at least go see, because this guy is not getting off my neck about this modeling thing. So I went, and coincidentally, the person who owned the modeling agency was somebody who attended the church that my mother was attending. So I knew with that church connection, it was over. I could do this.
Yes.
So I went to my mom and I was like, hey, the lady, Tony, owns this modeling agency and I want to model. So I didn't get resistance from there because of that church, we're so
fake. The connection, yeah.
Then exactly. So that's how that started.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how far did you get with modeling? And I know as you were modeling, obviously you were studying law and all this at the same time.
I got a chance to do modeling in different markets, but I was very clear and focused that I wanted to be first a lawyer. And I was finishing school. I finished school at 15, high school, college at 19, and just was an accelerated program. Even when I was in Nigeria, I was always sort of ahead in that sense as well. So I knew I could always come back and do modeling. Law was number one for me. So even when I went to Europe, Paris, and also the UK for modeling, I just said, you know what, I can always come back and do this. Let me go concentrate on what ignites my soul, makes me wake up every day and pushes me. And it was a recurring image of people back home, but specifically scavenger children that I ran into that I didn't even know were called scavenger in the Isolo roundabout. Some people know what I'm talking about. In the Isolo roundabout, there's a big, huge dumpster. It's bigger than two major football fields put together. And right there, during that commute that I would do from Ejigbo all the way to Ikeja for school, right around there, in catching those connecting buses at the Isolo Junction, I saw this kids, scavenger children that were dirt all over their faces, didn't wear shoes, were on broken bottles, walking around broken bottles, using their little hooks to try to get bottles to recycle. I didn't know they were scavenger children, but when I returned here, they were haunting my dreams for over 10 years. I would see them practically every night. So I knew that I had to do something about them. It wasn't until, I don't know if you remember that BBC feature on Vocal Slender.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that. That's when I finally knew that they were even called scavenger children. And I felt such relief that I wasn't crazy, that what I'd been seeing in my dreams, here's Vocal Slender and here's a whole community of people that I wasn't crazy. So that image and those kids have been the defining factor beyond the other story of my background that have just pushed me every single day. Because I made a promise right there, walking through towards the Danfo buses to get the Danfos to Oshodi and then Oshodi connect through the cantonment and walk to school, that someday I would make a difference in the lives of kids like that.
So obviously, I think from that early stage, you already knew law. So now in the US studying, how did you go about the process and settle out which law you wanted to study exactly?
Of studying law?
Yeah, no, not law, in terms of the area of law that you chose.
Oh, okay. So, again, I really believe in our identities and who we are. And I try not to, for me, law is a lifestyle. It's not you bringing a contract to me looking at the contract and saying, oh, do this, do that. No, I breed and leave this. It's heritage, it's legacy. Same on the fashion and art side. Yeah. So for me, I already made a determination that the way I practice law, number one, will be different and will be true to my essence of who I am. I shouldn't have to wake up and have to think too hard about law, because it's law is me, I'm law, law is me kind of thing, right? Yeah. So for me, I knew it had to be consistent with who I am. Trial work, because I do love to fight for the voiceless, definitely. Transactional work, of course, because we want to, of course, increase revenue for people, help people make money. Yes. But definitely staying true to my core. And my core is fashion, my core is law, my core is the arts and all of that stuff. So I just stayed, and health. So I stayed very, very consistent in following that path, which I knew meant that I would have to go a very unconventional route in law and outside of law, and be okay with it. And so it's always been a story of being an anomaly and being very different, and being okay with being different. Because right from the start back home, we were different. In the entire block of houses and everything else in our neighborhoods, my mom was the one of two persons later on, before the only person, and then later on one of two persons, where her husband wasn't around to be there for the, for the family, because he was abroad. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought that was important, because again, I went back to that, because again, that is that same girl that you were, that same person you were from the early stages. The law there, the creative side over there, the fighter that went from physical to book, and fighting them that way. So it's the same thing. I thought it's so important for people to see.
Absolutely.
That. Yeah, for your
and it's come in handy dealing with our crazy people, because I was doing Lady Brill for a minute, and Lady Brill was doing really good, and then I started to notice something, that whenever we had problems, we wanted to treat it like the mob mentality I saw growing up, which is we take it on the streets of the internet. And we call people out, and we go crazy. And I said, look, if you do that, I'm gonna take what I'm doing in court. I'm gonna put you on blast, and we're gonna do this, right? So I started, I later on formed African Music Laws, to empower people in business, African artists, empower them, and creatives at large. Yes. But the underlying thing is the story I told you, what drives me. But what happened was, and thank God for that, Niger stuff, because people see me online, I'm focused. I'm not here to do anything than just be about the business of what I'm here to do. So what would happen was I would start writing about this artist, like trailblaze the whole legal writing,
digest the whole story from a legal standpoint. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna drop names here. I'm just gonna help everybody save face. But I still have the emails and some of the calls that would just come and just try to be like, you know what? You don't know who you're talking to. Why you're writing about me and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know where you came from, but see, even when you lived in Nigeria, you were still Ajebota. We can't match. You better fall back. And they came to understand the vision. And a lot of them now are big fans and supporters as well, because nothing was going to get in the way of using our artists to illustrate how things can be done right. And how we can make a difference. The band can do something, Davido can do something. If I talk about it with a regular, ordinary person, no one cares. But with them as case study for how this is supposed to be done, guess what? The entire world pays attention. Their team was paying attention, among other teams, and people some of them will even reach out later and say, hey, we use, African Music Law content to even, in our meetings and ways we can improve and all this other things. So, yeah.
Perfect. I mean, obviously, like I said, Lady Brill's going smoothly. Then I think like when African Music Law came into the space, it kind of changed everything, because like you said, people like myself, I was excited. I'm like, yo, we need this, because when there were legal dramas always ongoing, artists, and we'll just see a bunch of stuff online. But you went online, you were putting it out, but you were putting it out from a legal standpoint without hurting anybody, but really digesting the case and things like that.
Absolutely.
From the get-go. again, like who, like what led you to that eventually? Was it from you were just writing stories about these people, and then you say, you know what, let me find a way to help these people also?
Yeah, what led specifically to the sort of case study?
So the case studies that you were doing, yes.
Yeah. So one thing I did, and one thing I know about myself is when I write, people pay attention, whether it doesn't matter what level, people pay attention because I'm very strong and clear in my voice, right? And so again, with Lady Brill, I didn't think it was the platform that I wanted to talk about these issues. I did a few things, got a lot of attention on that because I just thought, this is craziness. This is what I'm dealing in court with and dealing with people acting a fool and their disputes. So let me put it out there on Lady Brill. But I thought, you know, the essence of Lady Brill is fashion and business and leadership. We're not going to use this forum for that. So I actually had a different platform, fashionentlaw.com, which I'm very passionate about, which was doing both fashion and also entertainment law, but for the US side of things. And I already knew that even with the US side of things, I would have Hollywood celebs or their representatives contact me for my writing saying, hey, don't write about us, or why you know, on this different legal issues. Yeah. So on that portal, I started to also talk about the Niger side of things. But all of the Niger people were coming. I was like, I'm not going to have this weary people come and just mess up the portal. Let me just jejely set this aside. Now, before setting it aside, the whole backstory, I don't know how much time you have, but the backstory is that as a journalist, right, I had, because I wear different hats, but as a journalist, I had the opportunity to go back home to Niger to cover a story for the United Nations and later on to Ghana. And while I was there in Niger, a friend of mine gave me 2 CDs. One was Dari Art Alade, and the other one was Jasmine Olofin. And I got to know about Storm Records and attended one of the Big Brother Nigeria events that Storm was, you know, putting on. And Obi Asika, met Obi Asika. And then I went to Ghana, and it was sort of like, wow, you know, there's a whole world that I need to expose here. So when I came back was when about 2006. Yeah, 2006, ending of 2006. The event happened in April. But by December 2006, I started the Lady Brill platform and then officially launched in January. In 2007, July 2007, because I needed to know, I had a lot of trials I was doing, and I needed to know that I could have the discipline to have it be sustainable. So I'd get up very early in the morning, get it going together, and then, you know, just sort, you know, put that content out. So in the process of doing all of that, it still wasn't enough for me because I would go online and start trying to find a lot of information, especially on the music end. I still wasn't finding, but ultimately I did, which was Tony Payne's Nigerian Entertainment Online Magazine. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course, very well.
Tony was doing the Rugged Man and all kinds of people, even Nice. That's where I got introduced to Nice, among other artists over time. And so that was still good, but it still wasn't, she was really good at it too, but it still wasn't enough for me. So I continued to look, and then I found Not Just Okay with Demola Ogundele. And I used to just comment and mind my business and just enjoy the music that Demola was sharing at the time. But I guess my commenting was so strong to the rest of the commenters that they volunteered me and say, why don't you start writing some of this legal articles, since your commenting really touches on some of these issues. So I hit up Demola. I said, hey, your people are voting me, or let's do this. He said, yeah, let's do it. So I used to have a column on Not Just Okay called Ask ms.uduak. And I started to write. And over time, it became clear that I needed a much bigger platform to really not only address the music side, but also do like a tag of celebrities behaving badly and just take them on kind of thing. So that's how I ended up having a completely different platform, because there was a social proof that
it was
there was a big need for it. So then I went on to the africamusiclaw.com portal.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. You know, it was so important to get an overview of how everything came into place. So now let's shift focus a little bit. I want to talk about the music business itself.
Absolutely.
You know, Nigeria, the US. Based on your experience and, you know, who you are, as a lawyer, as an entertainment, fashion, Lady Brew, African music law. What are some of the challenges you feel that we continue to face, and what are your opinions and thoughts about those?
I think the first thing I want to do is sort of step back and talk about what I hear everyone saying all the time. We don't have structure. We don't have structure. We don't have structure. We don't. We say it everywhere. I disagree. We do have structure. We do have structure because before we're born, after a lot of us are born, Alaba international market is still going on, and it's one of the largest markets in Africa. Why is it working? Why are the traders able to take content and somehow distribute it nationwide and beyond even Nigeria sometimes? Why? I think we should ask those questions. It's because they have systems in place. So the question is, what is the system that they have? If we look at it through the African eye rather than the Western eye, what is the system they have that is working? And how can we come and help amplify it, working in tangent with them? I think that's always the key thing, because when we keep saying we don't have structure, we don't have structure, we don't acknowledge our identity. And so we keep looking externally for other people to give us their systems rather than innovating. And then what ends up happening ultimately is we can't compete on that level, right? Not only can we not compete, we leave a lot of money on the table because we're not able to convert and make our money because we're not working with our own people. So for me, we do have structure. We just don't think our structure is fancy enough.
That's a very good point, because I'm guilty of yelling that we don't have structure, and I think it's important how you put it that way.
So that's the first thing first. We need to look at what's working and then improve upon it, right?
So it doesn't have to be the same structure that the US.
It doesn't have to be, and we have the ability to educate our own people on intellectual property laws, on business and contracts. I know we'll say it can never happen. It's Alaba, but Alaba has made the transition even to digital as well. So it can happen. And when we say we don't have structure, why are the Oyinbo people and international people coming into the space? Obviously, they see something, right? They see something and they can build their own infrastructure to work for them, but they do see something. That's first things first. And I think that we need to change that narrative and go back and start looking at that. I think the second thing is one of the reasons we're not where we need to be is not working with each other. We don't trust each other. I cannot tell you, even as a lawyer, definitely as a lawyer, how many times I've been told not to work with my own people. And sometimes you initially sort of like, where are they coming from? But then when you deal with your own, sometimes you're like, okay, maybe they do have a point. Because if you know your sister or brother in America or the UK have the educational knowledge and understands your background and identity and understands the US market, and that they can be the bridge for both markets, you will leave that person and go with Yankee attorney who has no clue about your market, negotiate a terrible deal, get stuck in that deal, right? To the point where you can't even come and perform here because now you got to just stay overseas. And we have so many examples of that. A lot of our talents too eager to sign contracts because they don't want someone in the room that can advocate for them because they can't trust their own and they can't work with their own. We need to change that. Our executives also, major problem. And that's why this year I'm really focusing on trying to put our executives up front on my covers with African Music Law and get people to see these are some of the executives that have helped us get to this point, right? This is some of the promoters that have helped get us to this point. This is some of the managers, etc. Link up with the West. I set up African Music Law for the African artists. The people that hit me up the most are Hollywood executives and European executives, and also some of the influencers within that value chain. Why? They tell me over and over again, you have the market research. Sometimes your portal is the only portal that we're using to make business decisions about how to approach Africa. Well, I have the option maybe of then closing it off so that it only is with my people, but my people are not even taking that information and using it the way they need to be using it. and they're not working collaboratively with each other. I think that's a major issue. We need to have that switch up. It's not, I don't see anything fanciful with you signing a deal with Sony. I don't see anything fanciful with you signing a deal with Warner, whoever the brand is, or publishing deals. We've been hearing about our artists signing publishing deals for so long, whether in South Africa or the UK or the US. Nothing's come off of it. So we've got to switch up on how we do business with each other, and there's got to be some level of trust.
So before you carry on, we should answer this question because it's very similar. From Femi here, iTunes, Spotify, and major distribution platform are already taking.
Say it a little. iTunes, Spotify. Let me see that.
I'm paying it.
iTunes, Spotify, major distribution already take over from. Yeah, you're talking. Yeah, so they're talking digital distribution.
Yes.
We're aware that digital distribution is everywhere. That's not an issue in contention. And that's why you have the brands like the Western brands in the space or the Chinese brand. But even though the digital is there and streaming is taking over globally as well, we still have a very lucrative physical market as well. And we also have a digital lucrative market even within Alaba as well, right? Alaba traders are participating in the digital ecosystem. So would you rather not work with them and work with Apple, who's expanding into all these markets and all that, and you don't work with your own people? That's my point. You can work with your own people. You can retain your own intellectual property rights. You can build your own infrastructure, because really music, fashion, etc. is following the money. If it's in Africa right now, we'll go to Africa. But guess what? If it's in India tomorrow, we're bouncing, because you ain't got the money, and I'm not coming to kick it with you when you don't have the money. We've seen this happen in the 80s. And we had to build, we had to rebuild. And the way we rebuilt it is because during the recession here in the US and the UK in the 2000s, 2008, remember we had a whole exodus of, our local artists here. Banky W was here. T.Y. Savage was here. Even Davido was born here and spent time here. A lot, Nedo C, Ike Chukwu, all these people. You don't have to leave the US market to run over there if we can build that infrastructure. And even if you're there, why can't we build our infrastructure? So that's my point on that.
Yeah, that's a great one. This is a good one here from Dublin's favorite. Not necessarily true. Not everyone in Nigeria has enough data to stream from iTunes and Spotify. So that is agreeing with you, right?
Yeah.
I think
absolutely.
We know
data is a major issue too, although things are changing, but yes.
Exactly. But again, we're leaving a lot of money on the table because we're not taking advantage of, not everybody has data that can stream. People still want that physical CD or physical something that they can use to consume the content.
Yeah.
So we're leaving
and to be clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with working with your Western brands. Obviously, you want to come to the table with a lot of leverage. Any deal making, you've got to come to the table with a lot of leverage and be willing to walk. But when you will do that with other brands and you will not look in and do with your own, it's a problem. Look at the ecosystem even here in the diaspora. The African diaspora, especially Nigerians, have been very big deal contributors to where Afrobeat movement is now. So if you have a major recording artist show up to perform here, and that recording artist can get $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 pooled resource from promoters here. But then once Live Nation shows up, they say, oh, you know what, let's go with Live Nation. And they get only $6,000, $5,000
from those deals
for payment, only so they can say, oh, I roll with Live Nation. But what has Live Nation done for you? And what has the branding of Live Nation done for you? We've seen this before. I don't know if you remember, I forget what the year was, the US concert promotion. I think Ife Omorigbe led that. And
I remember.
Yeah, and then what's his name? Jason Njoku jumped in, spent over $90,000 of his money investing in that. And the big sell was all this Live Nation venues across the US. Nothing came of it.
Complete mess.
So if you worked with the existing promoters, whether it's Moose, whether it's, your crew in the New York area, whether it's LA, etc., and you all come together, that 90,000 would have gone a long way.
Absolutely.
Even though they had someone that was still, you know, one of
One of
us
the
that
gang,
helped in
yes.
Atlanta,
It just
but there
wasn't
was
enough.
no true testing that that could work.
Mm-hmm.
And the big marketing was the whole nation or major
Mm-hmm.
brand venue. So
Yeah.
that's my point.
And it goes
That's
back
my
to what you
point.
were
I recall
saying in
coming
terms
and
of
lining it.
trust.
Yeah.
Right? You talked about trust. I think that's part of saying trust
I
also.
can't hear you, Cos. Try
Oh,
that again.
sorry. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Oh, can everybody hear me? That's funny.
No.
All right, let me see something. So, great point.
Try it again, Cos.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit faint, but go ahead.
All right, cool. So what I was saying is that it goes back to what you were saying about trust also. You know, that it goes
Say it
back to
again,
where
Cos. You're so faint. I don't know
I
why.
can hear you. That's funny. Yes.
Okay, better.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Go ahead.
Hearing both of you. Yeah, I think the Senate can hear both of us. So I was saying, like, it goes back to the same thing, that it boils down to trust. Working with the industry, whether you're doing Live Nation or you want to trust the local promoters to work with the artists, etc. Yeah,
I'm still not able to hear you.
we can hear you both very clearly.
You're so low, like, and
Yeah.
I'm all the way maxed out on my volume.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. My volume is all the way up.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, my volume is all the way up. But people are saying that they can hear both of us very clearly.
That. Okay, we can try again. Go ahead.
Yeah. So don't worry. If it happens again, we just disconnect and just come back on. Sometimes that may help. All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you. So anyway, so we talked about structure, and then you talked about trust. We talked about intellectual properties. And so in your opinion, do you think it's a good idea for these major artists to sign these deals with the labels in the United States? Is that beneficial?
With artists signing major deals
in the US?
Major artists signing deals in the US?
Yes,
or
in the US.
Any other market?
In the US.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong if you have the leverage, with the exception of I had an issue with the whole Davido signing. I thought that was ridiculous. And if you know my voice, you know that I'm very clear on those things. Yeah. You have someone who, for the most part, is funding a lot of this, at least at the time, among other things. I mean, the deal structure that was explained was just absolutely ridiculous. And I said it didn't make any sense. You have so much leverage. You're not the typical artist. Don't treat yourself as the typical artist. Use all that leverage that you have in negotiating your deal. And he came back and renegotiated that deal because he told that he did, right, in all the different interviews subsequently, to live with something that he can be happy with. So if you have leverage, that's key in negotiating those kind of deals, and make it make sense for you. Make it make sense for you. I've had talents that in the representative side, on the law side of things, who will come to me and they want to sign things that just don't make sense. If you're desperate, I guess you could go that route, but if you're not desperate, make it make sense and think long term as well. Otherwise, no, and there's so many different options to consider these days that it doesn't make sense to go that route. More and more you're seeing the market really tilt towards favorable terms for artists. So there's no reason why you can't leverage that and build your brand equity first, so that when you show up at the bargaining table, you have something that really gives you that leverage for the kind of deal that you want to negotiate. I know people always say, and it's true to some extent, sign whatever you can because you get a chance to renegotiate, but you may not get a chance to renegotiate that deal depending on what you sign. Or if you do renegotiate it, it's like years later and your brand has really suffered and no one really remembers you.
Of course. And thank you. From what you've seen so far, right, where do you think the most opportunities lies in this business, whether here or in Nigeria, in the Nigerian entertainment industry? Where do you see the most opportunities?
From what I've said so far, what do I see what?
Where do you see the most opportunities in the business?
Well, I'm teaching a course now at the Academy of Art, which is focused on social media analytics and just really the ability to analyze data. Now, before I even started teaching that, based on all of my experiences online and also some clients that I've over time they'll all remain obviously unnamed for confidential reasons, but overall, artists not being able to see the vision of the importance of digital in brand building, right? Digital economy and brand building. So where the future really lies is not only the educational portion that our artists and everyone that represents them across that value chain, from lawyers to business managers to talent managers, just everyone, period.
Yes.
But also really understanding the back end of where your target audience really is. Where are they? What cities? If you're in Niger and most of your audience is in France and the US, then you need to be in France and the US trying to get that particular audience. If you're in the US, for example, the African music law audience, a large part of them are in Nigeria and then the rest are in the US. So I concentrate my marketing on both ends, right? So you need to understand your numbers and your data and then see what's working in order to emulate and keep doing that. And use that as well for your marketing, your promotions and sales and things of that nature, and connecting directly with your fans. So the future is definitely a digital economy where our artists can leverage them, what they currently have and truly be connecting online, not wasting time online, truly connecting. If you're doing IG Live, for example, IG Live from an artist standpoint doesn't have to be just interviews or picking it with the big brands. It could be you spending time with your fans and, inviting different fans to have a one-on-one conversation throughout and really truly connecting. And then using all the things that are available, whether it's streaming services in Nigeria, streaming services across the African continent, and streaming services in the US market, just globally, to really, really start bringing that revenue in and planning for the future, and then diversifying your stream of income. We know it's not going to be always endorsements. COVID-19 has taught us that. We know it's not always going to be some sponsorship. So what else do you have? Well, live performances. What else do you have? As the music publishing side, but we know COSON and all the other drama that's been following it. So maybe you just want to look at other streams of income that are available while they sort their mess out, and you figure out how you're going to get more income coming.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, I saw the interview you did with Bizu, and he talked about how he's involved working with artists, and he doesn't have a deal. They don't have a contract, a physical contract signed in place. And, spoke to Aldo about it and so many other industry insiders, and they all have similar experience, not having contract. Is this a good thing? I mean, in this day and age, should we still be doing business without contract in place?
Oh, well, the even in Hollywood, it's not unusual to hear about people not having contracts. I mean, there's a gentleman handshake ideology, right? That I can trust your word, you can trust my word. It always, for the most part, creates a lot of problems, but I have seen people who have not had such contracts and had long-term relationships in the business profitable. However, that's because they've chosen not to pursue those issues. They've chosen not to pursue the legal action to get what was owed to them.
Yes.
And they just believe that karma will just have things come back, things will all circle back, and whoever the person is that wronged them will be rewarded.
Yes.
Overall, any relationship, things need to be defined. If it's a personal relationship and you're a guy dating a girl or a girl dating a guy, the question is going to be asked, when are we getting married? And certainly in the Niger context, I mean, every weekend is a party, a wedding of some sorts. When are we getting married? Where's this relationship going? And the terms are spelt out. You can't just be hanging out just to hang out, because it creates a lot of friction, confusion, and stress, and ultimately the split, the divorce will come. So it makes sense to have your contract in place, whether you like it or not. Another thing I would say with that contract, way back before Afro beats or Nigerian music became cool, I was having situations where artists will contact me for representation. Well, not artists, well, executives and managers contact me for representation. And all they could think about was just the Niger market exclusively. And there have been instances where, like, no, the future is going to come full circle back to the US. Let me help you prepare for that future, so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, saying that contract relationship you're going to set up with your artist, or that contract relationship you're going to set up
just for this
with
market
record label has to be exclusively Nigeria. So what that's ended up doing is it's come full circle. I mean, we can come back when you're ready to upgrade that contract with your talent, and we can put in measures once it comes full circle back to the US market. So when you're negotiating those contracts, even within the Niger community,
yes,
or African community, think through about markets that will ultimately open up for you, and don't necessarily limit it to the US market. Even Europe, Asia is a big market. I wish we could do things with South Korea. I've been following South Korean pop for a very long time. There's no reason why we can't really, really collaborate with that market and really expand things beyond what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought that was an important one. Yeah, that's a great
point.
But
then I think people like Bizzle and those artists are mostly influencer marketing. They're never really so formal. Okay. I don't know Dublin's favorite in what context you're talking about. Bizzle's services expand beyond just influencer marketing. There's a whole bunch of back end that he does. You just see a little bit of it online. He does a lot of marketing, promotions, digital. He has a whole company out there, The Plug. He still works a lot with artists, among other things. So I think his services are quite a full array, but he is an influencer. Influencer marketing, yes, is one of the shifts. We're seeing a lot more of that, and we're actually seeing influencer marketing go even more micro influencer marketing. So I would, for example, be considered a micro influencer because my brand has always influenced the influencers, right? For the most part, every brand that I've had so far, so good. So I might not have the masses like a Linda or KG, for example, but I'm influencing the decision makers who have a direct impact on the masses. And more brands are looking for voices like that. That they can reach in working with as well.
Yeah, I have just two more questions for you, right? So how best do you think creative rights can be protected in Nigeria?
How big do I think what?
How best do you think creative rights can be protected in Nigeria?
Well, it definitely always goes back to the lawyers. So with African music law, I thought I was reaching artists, etc. And I started to notice I'm reaching a bunch of lawyers, that there was an entertainment law over there. Over time, a lot of the entertainment lawyers told me they learned about entertainment law through African music law. And they've been able to form their own entertainment law practice. I've had some of them from Poser to Ire to Akinyemi and Yoluwa, and so many others that have just learned over time, and other, routes they've taken as well. So it really comes down to the lawyers, and I think that that's the shift that we're in now. The shift that we're in right now is a shift that brings it all back to the lawyers to negotiate those deals. That's why I was saying it's so important for us to want to work with our own people.
Yes.
Because if you don't want to work with your own people, then it's going to be a problem for you down the line with the deals that you're negotiating. If a major artist in the US reaches out to you, global artist, and your producer back in Niger, and they say, hey, give me a beat, and then you give a beat, and all you do is maybe some sort of like work for hire deal or something, where you only just do the work, get paid up front, and you get nothing else. That's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So knowing and having really formidable, strong lawyers, really, to me, is where that direction is, and we're coming full circle. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I'm really focused in on putting that more upfront. I founded a Nigerian entertainment lawyers group in 2012, November 2012, I believe, on Facebook. Yes. So anyone looking for a Nigerian entertainment lawyer, it doesn't have to be me. Yes. Go on to the Nigerian entertainment lawyers page and put that request on there, or see, the members, and reach out to them directly to ask for services that you're interested in having them help.
And that goes for like starving upcoming artists also, especially, right? Like we're saying, artists that sign devil's deals at an early stage, and then later they beg, So I think it's even more important for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, cool. For sure. Ooh, it is. Sorry, cause it's California. It's hot, and I should have.
I know. Don't worry.
You switched on the kini because I can feel that heat.
Yeah, don't worry. So, all right, cool. So, a lot of the things you've done, like your life itself, your story, your journey, the several, being a journalist, attorney, publisher, is very inspiring to many.
Thank you.
Yeah. How have you been able to empower women in terms of what they do and just in general?
Just staying true to self, creating a space where one of the things I hear a lot with women is, oh.
Yes, welcome back, Carlos over here. I want to bring Uduak back on. We're going to wrap up the interview. It's been great. So just wait for everybody to join us back. What's up, Jay? What's going on, Femi? Yeah, so let's wait for ms.uduak to join us back so that we can wrap up the interview. Yes, okay, she's back. How do you do this? Yeah, there you go. Let's wait for her to connect. What's up, Liz? Paying attention, yeah, is important.
Oh God, much better on the vocals.
Oh, yeah?
I can hear the audio so well.
Oh, wow.
I wonder
what
caused that. Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you were talking about just inspiring women, things that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, women have never been my competition. They still are not. I had to reprogram my mind on men being my competition because I always felt like I had a point to prove based on growing up. Like if a guy can do it, I would just surpass it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But that wahala is not my own to carry anymore, so I don't carry that. I'm so over it. I play a lot of sports, but I think because my interest has always been what people would categorize as for men before it became cool for women to be in those spaces.
Yes.
So I was always having to compete. And one of the things with guys, that is, and one of the things, for example, I love to play basketball for fun. And I also just played it in high school, among other things, but I've always played pickup games. And so you go on the court and some dude is like, no, you can't play because you're a girl, right? And I'm like, okay, back in the days, now that's not even a question. That's not even there at all. But I'm not interested in adopting a male identity to be successful. I don't want African girls across the nation or wherever they are, any woman, to feel that I have to, that they have to do the same thing. Be organically who you are. And I think that men a lot of them have improved, but we still have more ways to go. And also we need our own role models. If a guy, or you always see guys be the ones to play the sports and all that, obviously you want to emulate the same kind of sports that they do and look that way because that's your idea of success and winning. But when you see more and more women that can be authentically who they are, whether it's the very feminine side or non-feminine side, they're just themselves,
of course,
then it creates room for that. And I think that that's something as a society, Niger society, we particularly need to lean into, because if we don't, there is an uprising, rebellion and revolt happening. And a lot of our men keep saying, why is it happening? And you want to be Western. It's not even that. Human nature, when you suppress people's voices and access and all that, eventually from society immemorial to this, it doesn't matter what society, there will be a revolt. People are going to fight back. Whether it's Yoruba or Benin Kingdom or any other place, is the British and the colonial masters that came in and we fought that. It's just human nature. Absolutely. So we need to be tuned into that and help empower our women. And on the flip side as well, our women need to really reshape and rethink how we see our men, because I think also we don't empower a man. When a man is seen solely as a bank roller, there's a problem with that, because when he doesn't have that, his identity is completely broken. He feels like he's useless and worthless, and we call him that in that society, right? We would tell you you're useless, we'll treat you like crap because you don't have money. But the moment you have money, we treat you better. And that is across whether men or women, and sometimes especially women. So we all need to reshape our thinking because it affects everything. And that brings me to women in the industry. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories from women in the industry. And things are slightly improving, but can definitely improve more. It's so good to see, for example, Aldo having women in leadership positions, or, you know, hearing about some of the other brands that have women in leadership positions. We need to do that more, because for the most part, they're the ones handling the hospitality. They're
Is that my internet or Miss Uduak's? Everybody's online. The internet has gone mad. Back on. Hopefully, the internet will be better at that time. Shout out to Millie. His house. Okay. Thank you, Theo. Shout out to Farai also. These are part of the women we're talking about to empower women. Very, very important. So let's wait for Uduak to come back. And one more question, or two more questions for her, and then we'll wrap it up. So let's see. Is she back on? No. Nope. No, she's not. But yeah, this has been great. We've talked about Miss Uduak from her humble beginnings, growing up in, being born in America, taken back to Nigeria, growing up over there. From the time she was 6 years old, understanding and realizing that she wanted to study law, just from reading a book of a young girl that was a house girl, got into trouble, ended up in court, and that whole court case scenario gave her power. Like, listen, I need to do this. I want to help people. I want to help a lot of these girls and things like that. Brought her into law. She came to America. You know, got into fashion, became an attorney, formed our own company, and started working with artists and people in the creative industry. So very, very interesting story, very, very inspiring. And I'm always excited to talk to her. Wealth of knowledge. So yeah, she may be having a problem with the internet. I hope she can come back on, because I have a very important question for her in terms of some of the things that's going on in Nigeria at this point. Also, I wanted to talk to her about that. But oh, she's back. Okay, yay! All right, cool. Let's see if we can wrap that up.
sorry about that, so my people. Sorry about that, because I already gave you.
Are you on Glow, or is it MTN or Airtel? What are you using?
No, it's basically worked, but my battery died actually.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, but thank you for that, for, like, you know, bringing that to a closure in terms of that empowerment, and not just for women, but men also. And for also have the understanding that it's not just about the money or whatever. It takes so much more than that. So, all right. Absolutely. So let's say this, right? I'm an investor. I want to come into the entertainment space, right?
Okay.
Who should I invest in? Should I invest in the artist, established, upcoming, or should I invest in the platform?
Well, what is your experience as an investor? What are you trying to do with your money?
Fan. I have like a, you know.
You're just a fan. Well, that's the problem. We've had a lot of fans.
I'm seeing people in jets. I'm seeing all these Instagram things, and I'm like, I have money. I want my own artist or business.
We've had a lot of fans, and I'm gonna drop names. Some of them I put that in on the africanmusiclaw.com blog, and some of them are part of my book with the case studies as well. Right? Everybody's on blast, by the way. Everybody. So, then we have that situation with the Runtown situation, right? Ultimately, Runtown put that story out, and the list goes on of so many people. It's a constant thing of investors going in. What are you going there for? What do you want from that relationship? It's not enough to say I want to be profitable, because then you don't understand the music business model. You can't be profitable trying to invest in an artist in Nigeria. No disrespect to you. That's not the avenue. You've got to be coming to it to make an impact for right now, with a long-term view of being profitable. But if you're going in right now to make a return on investment, or you want to hang out with people because they're the big deals or whatever, it's just not going to work. it's not going to happen. And then there's one thing I should address, which is a very, very common problem I see. Please, if you're a record label owner and an artist leaves you, stop saying, without me, there would have been nothing. That is ridiculous. It's a business investment. At some point, the relationship is going to evolve and move on to something
we hear
else.
That a lot.
And I say that because one of the reasons why labels who are investors, and usually solo investors, right? And they have this small outfit that they create, you know, them and just the artist or whatever. Number one of the reasons why I don't like hearing that is because we treat a lot of artists with a omodo mentality. So by that I mean like master slave mentality. You know, create truly a business structure. Your artist doesn't need to be living with you and you taking care of them and their mama and their village and everything else. If you say this is business, treat it as business from day one. Get your business structure in place as a business entity. Get your accounting in place and the proper auditing for your artists. Send them the proper, you know, whatever the royalty statements you need to be sending them. If they come to you for money for everybody else, you're not there to do charity. You're there to run a business. And what you're paying them or the advance you give them should be enough for them to have financial management. If they don't, help them with those financial experts, legal experts. You can show them, direct them towards those resources. Let them go sort out their financial business and help their families. But if you take on the role as an oga or madame, Seth, because there'll be more, thankfully, in future, there'll be, you know, women really owning labels and bringing on artists and breaking artists. You can't get mad that they have now wanted to break away from being your slave, and that they also don't want to continue that oga madame mentality, especially with guys, right? You got to understand the psyche, particularly of men. Every man wants to be his own man at some point. Absolutely. You know, I'm a woman and I want to be my own woman. How much more a guy? And so if it's a Wizkid, if it's a Davido, although it hasn't been in that situation, or any other artist, at some point it's like, not only are they hearing things from other people, but they themselves want to be able to stand on their own, and they have a right to want to be able to stand on their own as men. You know, we're not meant to live with our families forever. We're not meant to be somebody's omodo forever. So we need to change that mentality as well, that business mentality, because I can't stand it when you say, oh my God, you know, Berner was with aristocrats and see all they did for him. Now you want to leave him. Please come and be going. That's why I like the Olamide business structure, because it's like, look, I don't care how long you come, 2 years, you're out, period. That's what works for him and his business model. It doesn't have to emulate the Western business model. Keep it moving, go be your own man, create more leaders, create more structure, create more employment, create more opportunities. Let me teach you how the business works, right? Now, I obviously also say that with the caveat, we don't want very fragmented, fragmented organizations. We do need to work together collectively. But if you don't have the business infrastructure in place, and if you're an investor that has not done the homework for it to make sense, don't come crying wolf, because we're not going to have a pity. I certainly won't have pity party on you. Too bad, so sad. Move on, try a different investment. Hopefully it works out for you. So that's how I would see that.
Cool. What about this social media law? Do we really need that?
Social media law?
They wanted to impose that, the bill.
What I'm teaching? Because I do teach social media law and ethics.
You teach that, but now they want to impose
I teach that as well.
In Nigeria, social media bill. What's up, Layla? Uduak is not telling me something. She's using Glow Network. That's what I believe. Because the fact that she's freezing on me, I don't know. This can only be Glow or MTN.
No, I don't know what's going on. It just screen. Anyway, so are you talking about that or the social media law bill in Nigeria?
I'm asking you that question because you teach that, right? But I'm now asking you from that experience, do we need the social media bill they want to impose in Nigeria?
Well, from the little that I've seen about the bill, I haven't had the time to really delve into it. It's stifling voices because the government doesn't necessarily want the voices to be heard the way it is being heard, so they want to regulate it. I think it's hard to regulate from that angle. I think that you can't necessarily tell people how they should be behaving or not behaving on social media per se.
Yes.
I think that's like a personal thing that they get to decide. And I think that the public then punishes what's good behavior or not good behavior.
Yes.
And I also think that there already existing laws where if something is criminal, there are consequences for it. And in addition, as I always say, even from a trial lawyer standpoint, anything you put on social media, for me, when I'm trying a case, is fair game, because I'm going to subpoena those records and I'm going to bring it in. Law enforcement is also going to do something similar, right? So if you put something out there, like sometimes you have like a Davido or Burna Boy, with the whole case with Burna Boy and what was that guy that claimed that he had you know, written a song for Burna Boy. It was a recent case. Yeah. And then Burna sort of threatened him. Yeah. So if you're making threats like that, and God forbid that person ends up dead, we're coming after you, right? Law enforcement should be saying, you made that was the last threat that came. Or there was that case that Burna Boy actually beat up somebody in a hotel. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes,
yeah. I think it was one of the Eco hotels or whatever. So, and part of that discussion happened also on social networks. So illegal criminal behavior is already provided for in criminal statutes under Nigerian law. So there's no need to start to try to regulate all this other social media activities, because there's some already, a lot of the law covers a lot of that kind of behavior. So I'm not sure why there's a need to stifle voices or speeches. But if somebody thinks that there's some more nuanced thing I'm missing, please feel free to share.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. And last question, should we have government involvement more in the entertainment industry in Nigeria?
Well, I definitely think so. I mean, with the whole COVID-19 here, we're seeing what the American government is doing for the creative arts industry, and what the creative arts industry as well collectively are doing for their own. For our own, we don't really have a guidance. Then people asking our artists for money, and those artists don't even have the money. Even if you're Davido and you're giving everybody money, yafu like that, you still have high operational costs and expenses. And ultimately, you've got to look at that, and you've got to also save for your family and your business and all the other stuff. So definitely, there is an issue with respect to we just need to approach things very differently, right? And we're not necessarily thinking the big picture in that sense, and we really need to. So yeah. I don't know if that's very responsive. Is that responsive to what you're looking for?
It's responsive, you know, and it's a great point, because obviously, well, not just from the COVID standpoint, but I was also kind of hoping you would speak in terms of regulating radios, this whole, like even like contract relationship and the monetization of the music from the, you know, from this artist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, policy is definitely very important. I'm in Sacramento. We have a very, very active local policy-driven bodies that go before state legislators and advocate for the arts community and the creative community as well. I also belong to an organization that actively does something similar with rights relating to artists. And of course, as you know, just generally from Hollywood to all the major music organizations and public performance rights organizations, we're doing it here over in Nigeria. I mean, we saw an attempt at it at some point where Banky W, the band, and a few went and talked with federal legislators and just legislators overall in Nigeria, but that didn't really pan out as much. We do need advocates in our, Congress as a whole, advocating for our interest. And we need the consistency of that. When we have Desmond Elliott, for example, now, who is part of, exactly. So we do need advocates in that sense. And part of getting there is for us to get our act together and not only getting our act together, getting our lawyers to also understand the importance of public policy and the importance of regulating or regulation within the industry and incentives that can help the industry. And of course, pull in the banks and all the other third parties that are very important to our success. I think when you look at the lifespan of an artist or how their careers are supposed to go. So when they went into the industry, break into the industry, establish themselves, and then get ready to exit. I think for us as an industry, we get stuck in breaking in and getting to a point where we're somehow in the middle of somewhat established. Then we either start going crazy, leaving labels without honoring contracts, or we don't have the consistency where people want to invest in where we are, right? But one of the things we don't do is think long-term on that exit. If you have a two-faced artist, for example, where he's more of that established, mature artist and is almost exiting out to go do other things or maybe further expand the brand, what does that look like? How can we provide for those legacy artists, as we call them here? We don't really think long-term in such a way. We just really leave the artists to have to figure everything out for themselves. And I don't think that that's a good thing.
Working.
I think that, and artists themselves, don't forget that education, because as we see with COVID-19, our society has only started to just now appreciate the arts, but push comes to shove, doing Paklomo and jumping on stage is not, people are gonna not give you those live performances because they have families to feed and they got to tighten their belt. So education and tightening the belt and really, really thinking long-term strategy as an artist is very, very important.
Yeah, shout out to.
Do we have questions?
No, shout out to Doctor. She was saying that Nigeria should take a look at South Korea K-pop.
Absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, I love the K-pop industry and what they've done. There are a lot of issues with them, but overall, they're solid.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to Layla. Layla's with us also.
Layla, what's up? I'm really, really appreciative of you, Cause, for introducing me through interviewing Layla, because like I said, I had to literally go back to my book and said, there's no way I'm going to write a book and not have Layla be in it. Now that I know about her. So yeah, for sure.
So yes.
I mean, and thank you, Layla, for being a big part of what you're doing, especially as an East African contributing to the West African growth of Afrobeats. You're appreciated for sure.
Important.
Yeah.
Any last words for you in closing arguments?
Any last words? I really, really want to encourage, first of all, thank you, Cause, for having me on, number one. Number two, thank you to you and so many other people in the diaspora whose stories are never really told. That's something I've been very careful about in the book that I'm writing or have written already. I'm just updating a few things now. Because I think that our parents' generation really programmed us to only think about the continent because everything for them was over there. So a lot of us sort of followed the way they did as well, put everything over there and forgot ourselves over here. And it's so interesting because not only did we forget ourselves, it comes full circle where the people over there make even more than us here. Same like our parents, right? You send all this money and people over there live better than you. But it's got to be where you also take care of yourself here. And I think it's coming full circle. I've seen a lot of our artists over time. And when I think about, for example, I am Naira, Naira, right? Nigerian American, I represent Africa. Remember that artist? Naira, Duncan Daniels, a lot of artists, including the Sinzus and the T West that had to leave here in order to even make it. I think that the future now is creating a diaspora where those kind of artists can thrive without having to leave their family and friends to move to Nigeria, even though, yes, they're of Nigerian heritage, but they can be here and thrive and not have to leave everything in order to go somewhere else, start from afresh. And sometimes we don't see the trauma that comes with that. We only see the glory, but they haven't told you those backstories, some of which I'm privy to some of the backstories that come from all those kinds of movements. So I want to encourage, especially those here, it's coming full circle. Everybody's coming back to the States. The money is also here now, especially with digital. If you're here and you're a local artist, build, and liaison with those overseas, but don't think that your voice cannot be heard or that you can't break and become that big name that you want to be. That's where your heart is and your desire.
I was just talking with T Manny, an artist based in New York here. And he's living here, like you said, and he's sending money home to go promote his music. Like, you know, so I mean, I cannot agree more than what you said. It's so important to create that over here.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Sorry, that's my thing was trying to do Niger style on you, but I had to bring the Niger now, so I had to shake it.
Follow you. They follow you. All right, cool. So let's wrap this up with my quiz. I hope you're ready. Don't use the lawyer mind though. Just
now is there a lawyer mind? I thought you're telling me not to use the last giddy mind. Okay, don't worry, I'll go put some for side.
All right, gym or dance class?
Both. I dance in the gym.
You tapped into that mind though. I told you not to use.
Yeah, lawyer mind. Okay. Gym.
Okay.
Okay, gym.
Okay.
Gym. I love dancing, but gym for sure. Because I can do so much more than just dance.
All right, lunch or dinner meeting?
Lunch.
Okay.
We're about that business. Let's get it. And nobody got time to be doing dinner.
The last book you read, what is it?
Last book I read? Oh my gosh, I read like 4 or 5 books at the same time. How do I answer that?
The last one you touched.
Where is the book I'm reading? Oh my gosh. I don't know the full title because one of my students just introduced it. I had them list all their books, but You're a Badass.
Oh, okay.
I forget the name of the author. But say that again? Author? Yeah, American author. I'll have to give you the full thing, but it's a really good book.
Book recommendation. So
yeah, You're a Badass, How to Something into Your Greatness, but it's a really good book.
What do you prefer, audio or paperback for the books?
Paperback, baby, all the way. Gotta feel that touch and that paper and just read. I love reading stuff paperback, but I don't mind audio.
Traffic, even that.
Yeah, that's true. I listen to a lot of podcasts, lots of audio. I listened to some of yours yesterday when I was out and about to the store.
All right.
Yeah.
Eforiro or Bono soup?
Edikaikong or something else. I mean, I'm someone who eats strictly for functionality. I'm not a foodie, so I eat based on nutrients. So if I was to choose, Eforiro is a lot of greens, right? It does have those greens. Yes. Yeah, I think I'll take Eforiro. Strictly based on nutrition.
Mind. That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm saying. Lawyer mind, you went there. You had to. You had to. You can't help yourself.
Eforiro, carry on, Mr. Promoter Mind.
Look, Duke is laughing at you.
Promoter Mind.
White soup or afang?
Afang, for sure. Greens, greens and more greens.
Because the enzymes are moving around in my stomach already.
I know, seriously.
All right, Lady Brill or ms.uduak?
Lady Brill or what? ms.uduak. She's the creator and she never runs out of creativity and different products.
All right. Hollywood or Nollywood flicks?
I love my Nollywood. I'm passionate about my people and getting our stories told. So Nollywood.
Religion?
Maybe because I'm, when you're in a certain thing, it's sort of like, okay, Nollywood, man, all the way.
All right. Religion or spirituality?
Spirituality, for sure. Too much rules. I don't like to be boxed with rules. Spirituality is a true connection with God.
Amen. Fully established or huge potential?
What?
A man that's already fully established or the one with loads of potential? Sort of like me and Duke. I have the money.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. That's a very interesting question.
Hey, look straight.
No. Now wait till leave me and my lawyer self now. I've always been a potential person. Always. I think it's just a street in me kind of thing. Like, that's just what I naturally gravitate to. But these days I'm like, homie, come on. Established. I ain't got your time, baby. We ain't doing no potential. Waiting, waiting, what's, say my potential, we go chop. I beg, keep it moving. But at my core, I tend to be more of, like, okay, all right, let's see what you got. But no, I'm over it. I'm over it. Established. Let's go.
Man. These young boys, they don't have a chance. Good luck. Go ahead.
No, I beg.
All right.
But if you're a young boy who can establish Facebook, we could do it for sure.
All right. Lagos or Los Angeles?
Let's giddy every time, every day, all day.
Where was the last
substitution.
Time you were in Lagos?
Last time was 2007.
And you still say last giddy all the way?
I was raised there. You can't take, you can't take, it's in your blood.
Where's the loyalty now? Where's the loyalty? Come on.
I don't have loyalty to LA now. I was born in San Jose. So you said Las Giddy and Kinney and LA. So for me, it's Giddy for sure.
Thank you. That was fun. I can't wait for the playback of this. Learn the law, your background, the law, the fashion, dealing with the artists, the legal aspect of this music business is so much. And I think a lot of people in the creative industry, whether you're a promoter, you're an artist, whatever you're doing, you can learn so much from this. So
thank you so much, Cos. Thank you so much for having me. Again, like I said, your content is like brilliant for sure.
Thank you.
I've been sharing it. It's just such solid. You're asking the right questions, and it's eliciting your guests to really get into the business of entertainment and music. And I think that's so important. I've just been taking it in so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm listening, I'm sharing. Absolutely. So thank you. And great guests you've been having on as well. Really, really enlightened. And Kathy yesterday was, she was hot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's important. I think based on what you said, we have to have this discussion because we have an industry here.
Absolutely.
And it's so important, to make money, to capitalize on this. So we don't always have to wait for things that are coming from home. Me and Duke talked about this. Layla, we talked about this. We don't have a choice. We have to. Yeah, we have to. So thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Shout out to Dope Theob. You were throwing questions the whole time. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Jay, my big bro. Duke, Prince, Ademola, Duncan Daniels, everyone that tuned in. Thank you. I am blessed, of course. Big up yourself. Those that stayed up so late in Nigeria to stay tuned in. Thank you all so much. Shout out to T Manny. Spoke to him earlier. Very important. Thank you all so much. I will have this on the podcast and all that good stuff. Thank you all. Everybody, stay safe, y'all. Stay safe.